I could imagine some people looking at this and saying, okay, so you're receiving the seven ecumenical councils, you're trying to get the best of the undivided tradition, and it's things that appeal to them. A lot of the people that watch my channel are people that are on a similar journey to where you were maybe when you're at Liberty, of they grew up in a non-denominational context, broadly evangelical, then they get exposed to the church fathers, they don't know what to do, they begin looking at church history, oh my goodness, this is amazing, what do I do with this? And that's the question, what do you do with it? And
Mm,
maybe they find certain things appealing about the Anglican church, but then I can imagine a lot of them, or at least maybe a lot of my Catholic viewers, saying, well, yeah, just take one step further, like take all of this good stuff and have the magisterium. Problem
right.
solved. For you, why isn't that a problem solved?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Certainly one that we have to wrestle with. And I will say, I was ordained by an Anglo-Catholic bishop in a Roman Catholic church. Funny enough, it was a Roman Catholic church called St. Thomas More Roman Catholic Church. And it's a funny story, but basically, my bishop at the time was friends with the Roman bishop of that diocese, and we needed a bigger facility in which to do the ordination. And when my bishop asked the Roman bishop, can we use your church? He said, well, of course, you're more Catholic than most of my priests. Um, but I remember before he ordained me, he took me aside and he said, Wesley, as an Anglican priest, you should not try to convert Roman Catholics to Anglicanism. I don't think this was something I ever tried to do or that I had a problem with, but I take his words very seriously. To this day, I mean, Roman Catholics and the Orthodox are our brothers in apostolic ministry. So I probably wouldn't spend too much time trying to dissuade someone else from joining Roman Catholicism or Orthodoxy, especially if that's where you need to go in order to be a good Catholic Christian. If the papacy and the magisterium solves problems for you, great. Or if the structure of Orthodoxy solves problems for you, great. Um, but I think it's important that we have sort of a positive case for why be Anglican. So I'm not as interested in saying, well, I'm not Roman Catholic because of X, Y, and Z. It's possible that events would have arranged themselves in my life in such a way that I would be Roman Catholic, and I don't think that would be a problem. But why stay Anglicanism in a world where there's the ordinariate, in a world where I could just join a community parish that's Roman Catholic? The first is that I think that what I have received in my ordination and in my confirmation in Anglican circles is uh, derived from the apostolic ministry and sacraments. So I think that the case for Anglican orders is a very strong one. And I take that very seriously as someone who has received those orders. And so for me to leave, I think would be in some ways a sacrilege. I would have to effectively renounce my priesthood. I would have to be reconfirmed by another bishop. These kind of things, and that poses a number of personal problems for me. Um, I would only be able to do that if I thought my bishop who ordained me, who confirmed me, was a total fraud, and I just don't think that's true. Um, and I think the Roman Catholic case against Anglican orders is rather flimsy. They'll point to Apostolic Curiae, which was a papal bull in the 1800s that basically said Anglican orders are invalid because they removed from the ordinal any reference to the priest as one who offers a sacrifice. So therefore, Anglicans don't believe that the Mass itself is a sacrifice. If you've been to an Anglican liturgy, you know this is not true. We do talk about the Mass as a sacrifice in a number of places. It's the sacrifice of Christ brought to us. It's the sacrifice of praise and thanksgiving that we offer in return to Him. And even then, after the bull was issued, and the Anglicans responded, and I think effectively defended their orders. Many Anglican bishops went and got a kind of conditional consecration from Old Catholic bishops who are viewed as valid by the Roman Catholic Church. So, I think we have received something that is real here, something that is apostolic, and we should treasure that. Now, some of the other more positive arguments are that our liturgy and the goal of our liturgy is beauty. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness, you know. And that's something Anglicans have done really well. The Book of Common Prayer is I think one of the most beautiful English texts. So we have a guy who comes to our parish from St. John's College over in Annapolis, and he started coming because one of his professors told him, if you want to really appreciate the beauty of the English language, read the complete works of Shakespeare, read the King James Bible, and read the Book of Common Prayer. And we have two of those three things at my parish. So he started coming, right? Um, Liturgy should be beautiful. Liturgy should be beautiful because it's our worship of God. And so as Anglican, so in my particular church, we have the Book of Common Prayer. We use the 1928 Book of Common Prayer, which retains some of that formal language, you know, that I think is really helpful in terms of worship. You know, we're not talking to just some guy. We're talking to the creator of the world. We're talking to God, our savior and redeemer. And so using kind of that elevated language, I think is a really helpful aid. And you know, the cool thing is you have all these problems with the Latin Mass right now in Roman Catholicism, right? Our liturgy basically is the Latin Mass translated into English. We use the Anglican Missal, which adds a lot of the supplements back in, like the introits and the secret prayers and the post-communion collects and all those. It's basically the same thing. So if you like the Latin Mass, come to St. Paul's in Annapolis, Maryland, you know. But we have this beautiful worship of God that's reverent, and I think that forms and shapes us in ways that are really good. And then finally, I do think that there's something to be said about the pastoral approach. I know I was saying in some ways it can be one of our weaknesses, but I do think it's one of our great strengths. You know, I think that a person going to their priest and being able to have a really intimate relationship with him is a good thing. Um, a lot of parishes, like we have a couple Roman Catholic parishes in our area, you know, and they're very big, right? And there's only 2 or 3 priests that work at each of these parishes, and there's just not enough of them to go around. You know, in my church we have a couple hundred people, and we have a couple clergy, and so it's I think a very manageable size. But our whole approach to relationship with parishioners, I think is really a beautiful one. You know, we're very enmeshed in the community because we're allowed to be married, and so I have a wife, I have children, you know, so they play with the other children in the parish, and my wife hangs out with the other women in the parish. So we're very enmeshed, and there's that kind of personal element to it. And I think this is beneficial because, you know, there are some things, some duties and obligations that all Christians have. You know, if you ask me, should I go to Mass on Sunday? I would say, absolutely, you should. You know, in fact, I would say you're probably obligated to. Um, should I pray the Rosary or should I pray the Jesus Prayer? Is a question I can answer if I know you, and I know kind of what your journey is, and I can sit with you and walk you through that. You know, I can give you recommendations. I can work with you in your specific circumstance. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. So for all those reasons, I think, you know, Anglicanism has a lot of positive good for people. What it has become in some places is a stepping stone. You know, people become Anglican for 5 years and then they go off to Rome or they go off to Orthodoxy, and that's fine. If that's where they need to go, that's fine. But I don't think Anglicanism has to be that or should be that. I think it really is a tradition that deserves its own, or has its own merit, I guess. No pun intended.